Hello, everyone. Um, we're very grateful to be with you today and presenting you with another edition of the Vote 24 TV Kakis Dialogue. Today, we are mainly going to be introducing uh, NAYMOTE presentation of the President's Meter Project. The President Meter Project is a creature of the NAYMOTE partner, a civil society organization with long-standing reputation in Liberia, and one of the few civil society institutions that is holding the torch of civil society burning. Civil society organizations in Liberia were very instrumental during the period of the Taylor administration and immediately after the civil crisis. Many of those civil society institutions have more or less moved into dormancy or are extinct, but there are few civil society institutions that continue to keep the torch burning. Amongst them are leaders in the business, and amongst those leaders in the business is NAYMOTE Partner for Democratic Development and Democracy and Development. And they usually kind of gauge the government performance with respect to their development agenda. And they have continued to do so through what they refer to as the President's Meter Project. So just to give you a gist of what they say, I'll read for you what is in the forward by the Executive Director of NAYMOTE, Eddie Jawolo. So it says, President Joseph Human Boakai Sr. launched the arrest agenda for inclusive development on January 15, 2025, a bold champion to achieve inclusive growth, improve governance, and enhance service delivery, covering 378 interventions, 52 core programs across 6 strategic pillars. It had 12 months later, which is, look at December, maybe 12 months later, yes, would now be, obviously, if they launch it in January 15, 2025, then 12 months later is January 15, today. So 12 months later, this inaugural President Meter annual report on the arrest agenda answers the critical question: is the AAID, that's the arrest agenda, being fully implemented, or is it poised to become another blueprint of good intention left unrealized? So there's a critical question that NAYMOTE is raising, and they say the current assessment of the arrest agenda for inclusive development reveal concerning trends in implementation. Completed interventions, they say only 3 interventions, which represents 0.8%, have been fully completed. Ongoing interventions, they say 165 interventions, 165 interventions, which constitute 43.7%, are currently ongoing. And not started, 76 interventions, which constitute 20.1%, have not started. Not rated, 134 interventions, 35.4% could not be rated due to unavailable or implementation data. So there is 134 interventions, which constitute 35%, that could not be rated because there is no implementation data. So if, for instance, we erred on the side of the JMB government, and take this 134 intervention as something that has been started, then it means that the government will be in a positive standing. But if, for instance, we look at only those which has been completed, meaning you have 0.8% completed, then we say the government is not in a favorable standing, because our measure is going to focus simply on those that are completed and not those that have been started. So if the report is going to skew on the side of projects implemented or interventions implemented, then it will be a fair assessment over the years, because if you're looking at ongoing interventions, which is for the 3.7%, then we probably will have for the 3.7% added also to those that have been implemented, those interventions that have been completed, with the assumption that those interventions that are already ongoing are definitely going to be completed. And with that assumption, we can also have like 43 point or 44.5% or so, to say, this is what is implemented. So, or what be implemented. For the ones that have not yet started, plus the ones that, yes, the ones that have not yet started, which we say is 20.1% that have not yet started, that can be isolated as those projects that are definitely not, we cannot count on to say yes whether the government is going to do it or not. So only 20.1% we are very sure the government has not yet started. And for the ones that were not rated, is either two things. You either put it in where they've not started, or you can put it in where the may be said to be ongoing, because you definitely cannot put it in completed. So this from this forward, it is a little complicated to see where the government stand, giving all of these figures. And that is the reason why we need to dive into the report and unpack what the report has said. And definitely this is something that we would like to do tomorrow, and we invite the public to actually turn into this program, the Kakis Dialogue, and see how people who have expert knowledge on these kinds of data analysis and these kinds of program are going to analyze what is contained in this document. We hope that we can get to NAYMOTE to be able to attend our review tomorrow, to see whether they can give us a little bit of insight into the document and what it carries. So The document says here that in total of 44.5% of intervention have been, in total 45% of intervention have seen at least some action. That's 44.5%. As I mentioned earlier, 44.5% of interventions have seen at least some attentions, while 55.5% of the arrest agenda remains either not started or not rated. This looks very good, because if, for instance, those which have not been rated are actually interventions that have been started, but because the NAYMOTE partner did not get the appropriate data, and so they were not able to rate it, that's something that we have to look at. So this finding underscores the urgent need for enhanced monitoring, reporting, and accountability to ensure that the strategic objective of the agenda are realized. While NAMO Partner for Development, Democratic Development, initial assessment of the County Service Center revealed perhaps the most critical evidence. 60.7% of the government services supposedly available at county level are completely unavailable, and 85.7% still require citizens to travel to Monrovia. Decentralization remains a rhetoric and not reality. The post-assessment result reinforced the persistent challenge of weak service delivery, showing that 60.7% of service remain entirely unavailable, with 30.9%, while 30.9% are fully operational and 8.3% partially functional. Additionally, 89.3% still require in-person submission and live signature from heads of ministry agencies and commissions. Service centers perpetuating paper-based bottleneck and slowing operational efficiency at these county service centers, Bong, Grand Bassa, and Margibi. So it seems that this report focused on these three counties. I don't know. We have to check the detail of the report later on to see whether the report in fact covers more than Bong, Grand Bassa, and Margibi. However, progress is possible. The War Crimes Court Office Ombudsman's establishment, 710,000 biometric ID enrollment, e-procurement pilot, and onboarding process, and legislative reform prove that political will, resources, and capacity can deliver impact-driven results. At this current pace, the Liberian government will miss most of its target toward 2029. The completion rate must accelerate 22-fold. This is achievable only if government treats the arrest agenda as the existential priority it claims to be. NAYMOTE commits to monitoring every intervention quarterly through 2029, publishing findings transparently, and holding power accountable. Our democracy depends on it. Our development depends on it. Our children deserve it. Nevertheless, the arrest agenda can arrest underdevelopment, but only if collective action is considered over apathy, transparency, or secrecy, and result over rhetoric. This is signed by Eddie D. Jawulo, Executive Director of NAYMOTE, and this is the forward to the President Meters Project. Well, we are going to examine the President Meter Project tomorrow. So like I say, good evening again, and welcome to this short broadcast. Tomorrow, Saturday, We are opening a national conversation that goes beyond politics and personalities and press statement. Tomorrow we are putting performance under the microscope. Tonight, I want to introduce you to a document that every librarian should know about. Whether you live in Monrovia, Foyers, Redru, Buchanan, or Ganta, it is called the President Meter Project or Report. This is not a government document. It is not an opposition document. It is not rumor or speculation. You can consider it as something like the State Department Human Rights Report or the Human Rights Report of the Independent National Commission on Human Rights. For their stake, they are meant to be very independent and straightforward. They are not meant to be biased, or else they lose their credibility and respect. And so this report is data-driven performance assessment of government flagship development framework, the arrest agenda for inclusive development, and what it revealed should command the attention of every Liberian, every citizen. What exactly is the President Meters Project according to the agency? We examine the arrest agenda is not a slogan, it is a governing contract. The Unity Party government sought to establish a contract with the Liberian people long before Unity Party came to power. They introduced what they refer to as arrest, and that dovetailed into the development of the arrest agenda. The arrest agenda contains 378 specific interventions across 6 national pillars. Number one is the governance and anti-corruption, infrastructure and basic services, economic transformation, human capital development, environmental sustainability, social protection and inclusion. The President Meter report tracked every one of those 378 commitments from January to December 2025. Not speech, not intention. Implementation was what they look for. The headlines findings, and it is alarming. After 1 full year in office, how many of the 378 arrest agenda interventions are fully completed? Not 1%. Not 1%. There is 0.8% of the project that have been completed so far. Let that sink into our head. 0.8% of the project has been completed so far after 1 year of being in office. After 1 year of being in office, we have 0.0%. And that is 0.3%, 0.8% rather. Let us sink into our head. It is alarming. But we will investigate this report tomorrow and see How is this 0.8% derived? But NAYMOTE is a credible institution. We will reach out to folks from NAYMOTE to see whether they can participate in the CACI's dialogue, whether we can have a chance to interrogate them and see where they come from with this 0.8% implemented after 1 year. But this is alarming, and let it sink into our heads. Out of 378 promises, only 3 are completed. 3. And we have 4 more years to cover. So this is not about impatience. This is about direction, peace, and credibility. Where do the rest stand? According to the report, 43.7% of interventions are marked as ongoing. 20.1% have not started at all, and a staggering 35.4% are not rated, meaning no verifiable public data exists to confirm progress. This is like you're given an assignment, but there is no evidence to show that you have turned in your assignment. That could be counted as a failure. But it does not necessarily mean that you have failed, provided you can be able to prove that something went wrong along the way, that you were not able to establish the facts that you turned in your assignment or that you did your assignment. So just because the data does not exist does not necessarily mean that those projects were not implemented. The folks from the Unity Party will have to make it clear in terms of responding to the presidential meter project report and clarify what happens with the absence of the data that were necessary for the report to be able to respond or report positively on the progress of the arrest agenda. This is important. But if you look at it, it means more than 1/3 of the arrest agenda cannot be identified, or independently verified by citizens. And that raises a fundamental governance question. If you are implementing a project and there is no participatory framework that the citizens can be able to verify or establish that you are implementing a project, then something is wrong somewhere. We kind of, from the civil society background, when we are doing some of these assessments, we try to make sure that we do it from the citizen perspective. Because if the citizens are not aware of the project that is supposed to benefit them, then it means that there is a deal-link between the citizens and the government. Now, if there's a dealing between the citizens and the government, then the government has to re-strategize. That is why the Ministry of Information is there. The Ministry of Information is there to communicate government progress and government direction and move the citizens along in the direction of government development and democracy and what have you. The Ministry of Information is a ministry that's supposed to be proactive. It's not a ministry that's supposed to be reacting to everything that people say. It must be able to communicate what the government agenda is. It must be able to communicate what the government is doing. It must be able to communicate how the citizen can work along with the government to achieve certain things. Now, in this event of the government implementation of the arrest agenda, if the data are not available or the citizens are not aware that certain things are going on, then the information ministry needs to uh, take a reflection of itself and a stock of itself and try to uh, work in making some changes to how it handles government uh, information dissemination. If progress cannot be seen, tracked, or explained, how do we hold anyone accountable? So the government is basically trying to say, oh, we do not see, and therefore the people don't know, and therefore they don't ask questions. But that shouldn't be the case. Let us talk about what we are doing. And that is the only way that the people can be the eye of the president and raise the critical issues that the president will consider when he's measuring the performance of each of his cabinet ministers. This is very important, and we got to take it that way. We want to know which area are performing well or better and which are failing. This is important for us to measure the performance of each of our implementations agencies. Because if you have a president in the governance psychology, that president is a generalist. He brings in his ministers who are heading various ministries who should be considered a specialist. And they report to the president through a framework called the cabinet meeting. The cabinet meeting can be expanded or it can be restricted. They can discuss a particular subject or it can be expanded to allow ministers to individually give reports on their progress within their ministry and their mandate. That the report showed uneven performance. Some movement exists in governance and anti-corruption. The report shows environmental sustainability. There are some movements, infrastructure, planning and frameworks. There are some movement. But when we look at the pillars that affect daily survival, the picture becomes deeply troubled. The picture becomes deeply troubling if we look at those areas that concern basic daily survival. Under human capital, according to the report, human capital development, health, education, skills, youth empowerment. It says over 63% of interventions are either not started or not rated. 63% of intervention, either not started or not rated. On economic transformation, job agriculture, manufacturing, trade, etc. Nearly two-thirds of commitment lacks verifiable progress. Now, if the issue of accountability is hovering around economic transformation, issue of jobs, agriculture, manufacturing, etc., or trade, if those areas lack data to be able to verify, then either there is a problem with the arrest agenda, monitoring, and evaluation mechanism, because it has to be very clear how the data that will prove progress supposed to be established. Nearly two-thirds of commitment lack verifiable progress on economic transformation, jobs, agriculture, manufacturing, and trade. This means the pillar meant to put food on the table, skills in the hands of young people, and dignity in work are the weakest. And this is where the focus should be. When we talk about roads, whether you like it or not, and the government comes to power, roads will be constructed. The money for the construction of roads, they're provided by international organizations, that World Bank, the African Development Bank, and the likes. They are going to be provided those mega infrastructure projects. The concern is what is our budget doing for us? And this is a critical area. So we are going to look at the report tomorrow and see and examine these informations that are presented through the report. But for now, which are just presenting what the report presented. But we must be able to tell the Liberian people that these are issues of concern. And democracy should go beyond election. It should reach to the point where the people start to question critical areas in the national development agenda. But we all know that the development agenda does not usually move to the point of developing a people's friendly version. And the Ministry of Information does not take on the responsibility to be able to communicate the national development agenda so that it attracts a lot of people participation. The Ministry of Information should probably be able to move through the various news media outlets, work with them so that they have a particular program where they talk about the national development agenda, break it down in such a way that their participating audience will be able to connect with the national development agenda and be able to say, yes, this is our own. The decentralization reality check, for example, for years, Liberians have been promised decentralization, bringing government closer to the people. We ought to know what the reality is. Of course, there is the Local Government Act, and there is To move in line with that, the establishment of the Ministry of Local Government. How the establishment of the Ministry of Local Government has transformed to be able to deliver the services that are required under the Local Government Act, implement the Local Government Act, is something that we have to look at very seriously. Because I work with the Governance Commission and I know what it means. We try to reposition ministries and agencies to align with the national development agenda. And so major reforms were proposed. We pushed for the establishment of the Ministry of Local Government because decentralization was a major issue of governance reform, and there has to be this ministry reorganized, reorientated to focus on decentralization and empowerment of local government. Now, if the structure of the ministry is not aligned with the delivery of the decentralization mandate, then there is a problem. And for that structure to be aligned, it has to go through what we refer to as the mandate and functions review. And it is already the mandate and function review that produced the Ministry of Local Government. So if the Ministry of Local Government is established under the act drafted by the Governance Commission, then it means that the Ministry of Local Government is 50% on the way in terms of development. But there are other stages. There is a stage where the Ministry of Local Government has to be examined and a new organizational structure as per the act is defined. Let's say a whole review and strategic plan of the ministry is developed by the Governance Commission. And in addition to that, there's what we refer to as the staffing skill assessment. That's the whole manpower restructuring that will align with the new structure of the ministry. But that is something that has to be done. So decentralization is a critical area that the report lifted. And in that direction, we want to see how the Ministry of Local Government is positioned or repositioned to be able to address some of those things that are highlighted. But we have to examine the report to see whether it in fact recognizes the fact that the ministry has made some changes to and reposition itself to be able to deliver. But this is it. It says the report established some harsh reality, actually. 60.7% of government services are still unavailable at county service center. 35.7% of citizens must still travel to Monrovia to access basic services. This is bad. There are very, very easy services that can be assessed at county level. For instance, if you are giving a contract to a company that prints license plates and they are not able to deliver or serve, if they're not able to serve the populace at the location where they are, then it means that they should not take the contract. They should not take the contract. If you are printing plates, it is either you print the plate in the counties, or you are able to deliver those plates to your offices in that county, or you're able to make use of the service center and make sure that people receive their plates on time. In that direction, the Ministry of Transport, if they are connected with the delivery and distribution of plates, then it means that they have to have their representative at the service center. But I mean, it's a startling revelation that the report would say that 60.7% of government services are still unavailable at county service center. And this is what the government should be looking at in terms of delivering. Firstly, is the issue of deconcentration. You got to deconcentrate the services. You're not taking it away from the ministry totally, but you want to make sure that those services that can be delivered in the counties must be delivered in the counties. You don't want to concentrate them in Monrovia. That is terrible. And 87% of citizens must still travel to Monrovia to access basic services. That is bad. So here is the question that we must ask plainly. Is decentralization happening, or is it just a policy slogan? And sometimes I have a problem with the Governance Commission when they develop all of these policy frameworks. The unit on monitoring, the mandate area on monitoring and evaluation does not take it upon themselves to go after this policy and see how well they are performing. For example, if the Governance Commission made a proposal and actually merged the Ministry of Planning and the Ministry of Finance, after a year, 2 or 3, the very Governance Commission must go and do an assessment. And there is a framework for doing that, which the Governance Commission referred to as the Annual Governance Report. So the Annual Governance Report will come up every year. What's wrong with taking 1 year to go back to the Ministry of Finance and see how the planning function, which has been submerged under the Ministry of Finance to make it a Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, whether it is performing better under the Ministry of Finance than when it was separated, and what are the cost-benefit analysis to go along with that. These are things that should be considered. So the question is decentralization happening, or is it a policy slogan? And that question is for the Governance Commission to answer too, because the ministry that is implementing decentralization cannot be the same ministry that is going to perform a final evaluation of ourselves. We ought to be able to say whether decentralization is actually working or not, because to decentralize was a proposal that gained currency, and so we had the various act, the Local Government Act, and the amendment of the Ministry of Internal Affairs into the Ministry of Local Government. But are they working? is the question. And who's supposed to do that? Is this independent institution called the Governance Commission that's supposed to work on this? And I'm not sure that they are taking this into consideration. Coordination capacity and transparency gaps are there. The report identifies systemic problems, weak coordination across ministries and agencies, poor sequencing of reform, inadequate project readiness, limited disclosure of implementation data. I think there is where some of the gaps are when the report says that they didn't have the data to verify implementation. In simple terms, policies are being announced faster than institutions can deliver them. The most serious warning in the reports is the part that we must pay attention to. Policies are being announced faster than institutions can deliver them. So there is a relation, there's a correlation between the policy and the institution to deliver the policy. So if you don't have the institution to deliver the policy, then it means that your policy is not complete. The policy must envisage implementation, and the implementation must envisage an institution. So say policy presupposes an institution, the implementing agency, and that implementing the policy must presupposes implementation, and that implementation presupposes an implementing agency. That is how it goes. Here is the part every Liberian must understand. Based on current performance trends, the report concludes that the arrest agenda is not on track to meet its 2029 targets. We are going to examine the report to see whether it is right about this claim, that based on what they see so far, the arrest agenda is not on track. But if that is what they have seen, and if that is true, then it means that this is a kind of positive feedback to the government, and the government should be able to look at this and say, yes, oh, let us take this report in good faith and be able to work on what is missing, because there are opportunities. They still have years ahead of them. To succeed, according to the report, implementation will need to accelerate by more than 20 times the current pace. This is not politics, this is arithmetic. Why the public must pay attention? Because these numbers are not abstract. They translate into daily roads and clinics. I mean, they translate into delayed roads and clinic, missed job opportunities, youth frustration, rising cost of living, weak confidence in government promises. If citizens do not ask questions, demand clarity, and insist on accountability, this gap between promise and performance will only widen. Tomorrow's show is very important, and we have to look at it from that perspective. We hope that the public can participate through the chat. And if you want to call at any time, the number is going to be on the screen, and you can put in your call through WhatsApp, and we are going to respond to you. But tomorrow's show is going to be very, very important, and we have to make sure that we are ready to look deeper into this report and see how fairly they deal with the issue of the government performance. Tomorrow, Saturday, Vote 24 TV will break down the President Meter report line by line, separate spin from substance, ask what must change and how fast, and give citizens the information they need to judge performance for themselves. No propaganda, no blind condemnation, just evidence, context, and truth. The arrest agenda was presented as a rescue plan for Liberia. The question now is simple: is Liberia being rescued or just reassured? Join us tomorrow on Vote 24 Live on the Kakis Dialogue, because a better Liberia is possible. Thank you, and God bless you. Join us tomorrow for another edition of the Vote 24 Kaki Dialogue, where we examine the President Meter project and how the government performed in 1 year. Thank you, and God bless you. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.